Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another Breakfast with Blaha. And today I'm just having some watermelon, keeping it simple this morning. Probably be the last one of these in just a little bit where I do just a watermelon. I like to do this on the weekend sometimes. All right, let's talk about novice lifters. One of the things that I notice is that novice lifters seem to think that they need way more training volume than they actually need. And this is one of the biggest issues that I see with a lot of novices starting is that number one, they're afraid to eat. Number two, they train too much. And when I mean train too much, they want to do just too much fluff and pump without enough of the actual real work in there. Meaning they think they need to do endless sets of smaller exercises. And the worst part of it is, again, their sleep is usually disordered if they're younger. And they're not eating enough because they're afraid of gaining fat. And anyone who's been lifting a long time knows what happens with this. They just get overtrained. They get burned out, they get fatigued, they get sick, their strength doesn't go up. They're like, I don't even seem to be gaining muscle. And it's because this is what they want to do. And I get this with clients a lot. A lot of my clients, well, I want to do more work. And I let some of these novices sometimes do a little bit if they want to argue. And then I reel them back in. And then make them eat. Okay, and then I make them eat. And then when I give them other stuff, like, is this enough training volume? You get this all the time. Like, I actually will have novices, when you start giving them programming, they start trying to add up the total sets and have to say, like, well, this isn't enough total sets for this muscle. Like, you know what? If you knew how to train, you wouldn't need to hire a coach. You would already be jacked and strong and be benching 300, squatting 400, deadlifting 500. And you would look like you lift if you knew what you were doing. Clearly you don't. And what these kids fail to realize is that when you do big multi-joint exercises, those sets add up real fast. Like, there's no need to be thinking in terms of full sets versus half sets for a novice lifter. Okay, there just isn't. You do 10 sets of rows every week, any type of row. Yeah, we could argue the data shows that with lower volumes, curls do build more bicep than rows. But those studies are only looking at 6 total sets a week. And they still grow biceps, by the way. Lat pull downs grow as much bicep as curls. But you're doing that, your lats, traps, biceps, forearms, they're all getting a lot of work. Though in deadlifts on top of that, you're good. Same thing when we start looking at benching, overhead pressing, all this stuff. And I'll usually let kids do a little bit of arm work. I'll let them do a little bit of arm work. But realistically, research doesn't support that for novices. It doesn't support it. Studies looking oftentimes in novice lifters at bench pressing show that 6 sets of bench a week will maximize your tricep growth. There have been studies that compared that, and that's what they found. They found that adding tricep extensions to it didn't cause any measurable muscle growth. I'll still let them do a little extensions. But you guys see where I'm going with this. Let's say I put a novice into a 5-3-1 type template and give them bare bone stuff, like big but boring with a little bit of stuff. Like, what do we mean a little bit of stuff? Some rowing, some good mornings. What does that mean? They have 4 days a week. They have a squat day, a bench day, overhead press day, deadlift day. What do we do on those days? We ramp up to a heavy set. Now, I can adjust their ramping to make it more effective sometimes, and I do, if they need more workload. but we'll count it as one real work set. And then we do 5 back off sets. Well, that's 6 sets of each of those big exercises every week. 6 sets. But they're all big movements. I could have them go home right there. And I think that's what throws the novice lifter off, that I just said that. Like, well, what about my biceps? I'm like, yeah, your biceps are the only thing not really getting worked that hard, right? That's it. One muscle. That's all you can think of. One muscle. But those 6 sets of 4 exercises of those 4 big movements. Now you throw in some rowing or some chins if they're capable of doing them. Again, I like to throw in good mornings or some other posterior chain work. These kids will grow off of it, but they'll grow off of it if we just did the 4. If we did those 6 sets and went home, they would get bigger. And some of these kids writing their own programs, doing this bro split they found, aren't making any gains. They're not making any gains at all. And they're doing sometimes 15 to 20 sets for muscle a week. And they're not making any progress. Then you put them on something like this, what happens? Especially if you make them eat and gain body weight. They start growing. And again, I do mean you could just do those 4. You could do the big wheel boring. I like to see some rowing and some other stuff in there. I like to make sure we're getting a little bit of extra hamstring and low back work. If we want to do some arms, we might do a little bit of arm work. A lot of them like it when you give them curls or shrugs. And that's fine. But realistically, I mean, if we were to come over and talk about really getting a novice big quick, what would we really need? We could run a template like that with those 4 exercises and add rows. Back if we wanted to get some extra posterior chain work, that's fine. We could do barbell or bent over rows. You could do pendlay rows. You could add those after every workout. At the end, that would really thicken them up real fast. What would that be? That would be 2 exercises. 2 exercises per training session. A lot of kids are going to be like, Coach, I don't even know about that. But it would work. And I like to do stuff like that with some of them. And then all of a sudden they're making gains. They're getting bigger. They're getting bigger all of a sudden. Like magic. When they weren't making any gains at all. Why? Novice lifters, young novice lifters left to their own devices tend to overtrain with a bunch of fluff junk, and they don't eat enough. That's it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.